Hello everybody, good morning, welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news as Erik ten Hag apologises for Manchester United's draw last night. We'll also be talking about what is essentially no more excuses for Manchester United. Yes, we're unbeaten in 4, but we're back where we were again. You know, it's 2 draws in a row and it's just not good enough, is it? But look, somewhere I want to start, we're going to talk about Ruud van Nistelrooy as the next Man United manager. We're going to talk about the attack. We're going to talk about Bruno. We're going to talk about the apology. We're going to talk about the issues last night. But I think there is one thing that, look, I don't do this very often, but I'm absolutely outraged by this. I'm furious about it. And I know when I say you're not a real fan, it instantly is going to set the comments off because a lot of people don't like it. Because if they feel that someone's got a different opinion, you haven't got a right to say they're not a fan. And obviously sometimes I would do it just to wind people up because I'm wound up. But on this one, I'm so close to saying it at the start of a show because I'm absolutely appalled. I don't know what's happened to our fan base. I really don't know what has happened to it. And look, I'm more than happy to take a few myself. And if I've ever done it, then I was wrong. But the treatment of Ugarte last night is a disgrace. I don't care what a Chelsea fan does. I don't care what an Arsenal fan does. I don't care what a non-Manchester United fan does. But to see Manchester United fans slagging off Ugarte when he's barely started at this football club is absolutely indicative of what modern football has become. There is no patience. There is no support. There is just pure selfishness venom aimed at our own players. Now, if a player's been here for 3 years, like Bruno, he's been here longer, and he puts in a performance like that, fine, you expect better. But Ugarte has barely got here, and people are coming up with names for him, people are calling him shit. I don't know who these people are. I don't know why they support Manchester United. I'm not saying they're not supporters of Manchester United, but I don't know why they support Manchester United. I know why I support Manchester United, because as a kid, my granddad, who worshipped Duncan Edwards and the Busby Babes, would have VHS tapes on and I'd be enthralled by it. I then grew up, kept watching them, saw Sir Alex, saw all these young players, saw success, saw downtime, saw passion, and fell in love with the football club. And one of the enduring things through that was that you support young players when they come through, and you support new signings when they come in, and you don't judge them after 2 or 3 games. But it's creeping in more and more. I had the same rant about 2 years ago with Garnacho. I saw Garnacho hate all over the timeline about 2 years ago before Christmas, and I couldn't get my head around it, and I can't get my head around this. Why would you pile on to a player who has only just come to this football club? Why would you add that pressure to a new player? He's tweeted this morning about it wasn't his best performance. Oh, admittedly, it wasn't, but I think he made more tackles than anybody on the pitch yesterday. His passing was a bit off, but for God's sake, I mean, people, do you not know what this football club is? Do you not understand what the foundations of this football club is? Do you not understand what we're about? You know, we're about promotion of talent. We're about patience. We're about nurturing. We're about protection. We've got United in the fucking name. And yet we've got these absolute morons piling in on new players. Are they fans or are they actually saboteurs? You know, is that question going to need to be asked? Because these people who want to jump on new players and young players, it's unfathomable. It's just not who we are. I don't see Arsenal doing it. I don't see Man City doing it. I don't see Liverpool doing it. We never used to do it. Why is it creeping into our fan base? Is it because of 10 years of failure that people are just becoming intoxicated with this, you know, venom? A little bit of a history lesson. Nemanja Vidic was crap at the start. I didn't see United fans going around going, Nemanja Binic. Michael Carrick didn't start off that well. People weren't going around shouting Michael Tragic. Memphis Depay didn't start well. He didn't finish well, but we didn't start calling him Memphis Deprat. And the media started on De Ligt, but I didn't see United fans going, de shit. So why are we starting on Ugarte? I just don't get it. At least he fucking gives a shit. At least he fucking puts a tackle in. It needs calling out. It's got nothing to do with anything else I'm going to talk about in this show. But I needed to vent, and you vent, and I'm entitled to vent as well. And I will shout this out every time I see it. If every time I see it with a young player or a new signing, you've got to give them support. You don't make your mind up after a couple of fucking weeks. disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. The impatience is one thing, and I know that that is prominent in society, but this football club, nah. Some of us don't want Old Trafford to get knocked down. The way it's going, knock it down, build a new stadium, sign somebody. They were shit for half an hour. Let's sell them. Let's become the bloody swipe left football club, because the patience has to return. You've got to have that. The Ten Hag argument's completely different. It's year 3. It's not even month 3 with Ugarte. And there's a big point about that I want to talk about a little bit later as well, about the Ugarte signing, how late it is and why it could be a factor in what's going wrong with United. Because I look at United at the moment and I don't even know what our best 11 is, because it's nearly the end of September and we're still acting like it's pre-season, because yet again, we weren't ready to go on the opening game of the season like a lot of clubs were. But no, look, I think it needed saying, and look, you're all entitled to your opinion, but I think we need to protect what this football club is all about, because if it's not performing on the pitch, it should always be in the heart of fans, and we protect our players, especially, I've criticised players. This is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the first nurturing months of a new signing or a young player. You've got to protect them. That's what we do. I had someone messaging me today going, you didn't do the same for Fred. I was like, go fuck off. What an absolute prat. I remember the first year of Fred. I remember doing the United stand, and I remember saying he's not being given a chance. He needs a run in the team. You need to give him 5 or 6 games before you can judge him. I specifically remember those words. I remember those videos. At the end, I'd had enough of Fred. Yeah, after a few years, get rid of him. But at the start, I was one of many saying you can't judge a player when all he's getting is cameos. You've got to give him a run in the team. I'm a firm believer, and I said it about Garnacho a year ago. What did I say about Garnacho a year ago? I said he needs a run in the team. He can't just keep being judged off the bench. You've got to give him 3 or 4 games in a row starting in the team. And lo and behold, you do it, and that's what needs to happen. You can't keep cameoing these players. Anyway, Keel says, it's not Ugarte's fault. Eric Ten Hag's tactics are unsustainable. Ray Carl Brown Amori said, Ten Hag's apologised. We're going to talk about that now. I said I was worried about Ugarte if he had a bad game. Our fan base will turn. It's the new breed. It's disgusting, Ray. Well, it might be the new breed, but I'm the old breed. And maybe Ray's the old breed. And maybe we'll be singing in the darkness, but I'm not going to stop singing. I'm not going to stop singing about what this football club means to me. And you don't turn on new players like that. Disgrace. Absolute disgrace. It's not what we're about. You don't turn on young players like that. You don't turn on new players like that. It's a disgrace. An absolute bloody disgrace. And imagine if Man United fans at Old Trafford in 2006 did a different version of the song, because Carrick started badly and it was, oh, he's tragic. He's nothing like Scholes, and it gets in the players' heads. I don't understand what these fans are thinking when they're slagging off new signings. Do they really think it's going to help? The logic of it is wild when you think about it. I'm a Man United fan. I don't like the look of this new signing. I'm going to slag him off. Why am I doing it? To make myself feel better. Will it help my team do better? No. Will my team still be shit? Yeah. Does that make me feel better? No. It's just swimming in a toxic pile of shit. Like, do these people ever actually think that being a little bit supportive and optimistic might help that player instead of absolutely destroying their confidence? I just don't get it. I really, really don't. Isn't Van Nistelrooy the striking coach? He can't even get this team to score goals, says Trey. Eric Ten Hag's biggest mistake was making Bruno captain. He has too much power in the dressing room and would sulk if dropped, says Abhijit. Eric Ten Hag mocked on Dutch TV by Hullet due to poor starts, says United 1. Who's rude, Hullet? Shit coach. Gifted 1, the United membership, says Colin. Hullet was an embarrassment at Newcastle, mate. I'm not going to listen to him about management. Legend as a player, but, it's just another ex-player with an opinion. We've all got those. This fan base is disgusting for attacking Ugarte, says Ronnie. Look, if you want to have a pop at Ugarte yesterday, he was the only guy who actually put a tackle in out of 6 players who fucked up on the goal. But brilliant analysis that I saw from Swedish Rumble today, which was what we were talking about last night. Absolutely spot on, and I'll call out good analysis. Basically, we were talking about this last night. The rotation of Maguire into the back 4 changed the way that we played. And we were talking about this last night, and this particular Twitter account put it out in a word form today in their own opinion, and I completely agree with it again. When you play De Ligt and Martinez, there is more confidence from Mazraoui and Dalot to go forward. Dalot went forward last night, but Mazraoui stayed back a lot. That's compensation for Maguire. That happens all the time. We used to call them Harry the Hoover and Victor the Vacuum. They'd pull their fullbacks in to protect them. So that's one thing. Also, when you've got De Ligt and Martinez, you press higher up the pitch, which gives Ugarte more support. It compacts the midfield. It brings our midfield closer to our attack to bring the likes of Xerxes into the build-up. We didn't do any of that last night. The gap between the defensive line and the attack was massive again, and that was demonstrated by the amount of 40-yard angled long balls we were doing. We wouldn't be doing 40-yard angled balls against Crystal Palace very long because we didn't have 40 yards between our centre-backs and Rashford. It was more compact. So when you've got De Ligt and Martinez playing, they support the midfield and make it more compact. Yesterday, Ugarte didn't have that support. He's got Eriksen next to him, who isn't defensive. He's got Bruno, who's trying to hold hands with Xerxes, and the midfield gets swamped again. And what you end up with is an inability for a player that's very good at pressing and winning the ball back. He can't press and win the ball back in an area that's 40 metres squared. He can't do it. So we need to be more compact. If we want to get the best out of someone like Ugarte, or even Casemiro had this problem last year, you can't just drop a defensive beast in the midfield and then say, marshal that 40 metre box. You can't. You need to bring it down. If you want him to get, and he did it a few times anyway, he did one really good one in the first half where he absolutely anticipated it and won the ball. He is very good at winning the ball back. Give him an opportunity to win the ball back. That defensive change didn't work. And look, you have to be able to rotate, but unfortunately the profile of centre-backs that we've got aren't good enough to play the same way, so you change the way you play. When Yoro's fit, it's a different matter, but we've got Maguire, Lindelof and Evans. They are not suitable. I don't know when people are going to figure this out. They weren't suitable last year. They weren't suitable the year before. They weren't suitable for the year before that. We've been talking about our centre-back problem for about 4 years. It's not going to change. You play Martinez and you play De Ligt and you go, oh, I really like this. It's very transformative. We've got a high line, high possession and a high chance creation. We take De Ligt out of the team. It's a low line, low possession, low chance creation. It ain't bloody rocket science. You can get these so-called experts talking about, oh, our attack's not good enough. It's really simple football. Crystal Palace, high line, high possession, high chance creation. FC20, line's not high, massive gap in the midfield, low possession, low chance creation. It's opposites, and it's all because we don't have a replacement to rotate De Ligt out. Now, I understand why he does it. He's terrified of injuries, but, you know, Arsenal aren't the same when they play Saliba and Gabriel, are they? They're not the same. Fortunately, Liverpool and Man City can rotate because they've got Aki, they've got Akanji, they've got Stones, they've got Diaz, they've got Vardial. Liverpool have got Van Dijk, Konate, Kwanzaa. They've got a couple of others as well. We don't have it. We don't have it at all. So, you know, I can look at last night and be very, very disappointed. And Ten Hag gives the reason why it didn't work. But we were talking about it on the watch-along last night. You could see it a bloody mile off. We played completely differently last night to the way that we played against Crystal Palace. And it's not acceptable. I'm not saying it's acceptable. It's not an excuse. But it was very, very clear that we would have played a very different way if we'd played De Ligt and Martinez. And their end of the lesson. Do you play De Ligt and Martinez every bloody game and run the chance of an injury, or do you try and protect them? And that's where it went. Daily Dose, you're getting blocked. In fact, I'm taking that word and I'm blocking the word completely. That is the word of a knobhead, and you're a knobhead, and you obviously watch and read shit as well. Get out of our chat, you dick. I'm not even going to give the word any credit. It's just going straight on the block list. Absolutely not having it at all. You're not funny and you're not a United fan, so fuck off. I want to talk about what Ten Hag had to say anyway. This is what he said after the game. It's an apology. He said, I saw in many games how high our work rate is, but today I have some criticism. It's not only the team, I have to look in the mirror as well. I am part of it. We have to be more clinical in such situations. You know what? I'm going to applaud that. It doesn't make anything any better. If I'm being honest, it doesn't. You know, look, we drew the game. We didn't lose the game. But the way they reacted to that shows you just what a bad result it was for us and what a great result it was for them. I mean, they were taking more pictures than a bloody iPhone. It was incredible, and you've got to accept that. We should have won the game. The goal we conceded was disgusting. But what I will always, and I remember Solskjaer doing it towards the end, and look, maybe the hint is towards the end, but there has to be some accountability. And I think something that Ten Hag has quite rightly been criticised with over the last, recent times is his inability to see what we see. And I will obviously never not... Oh, sorry, I've just lost my live chat. I will not call out and, at least... not praise, but, he has to take responsibility. I said after the Brighton game, some people said I was a bit harsh, but I said after the Brighton game, that's on the manager. That is on the manager. I look at the game last night, and I think it's more of a collective, but the manager is certainly responsible. We all know about the Bruno thing. I mean, if you want to talk about the Bruno thing, we can, but I think we've done it to death. But ultimately, it's good to see the manager coming out and saying that, look, he's got to take some responsibility as well. We've got to be more clinical in such situations. We had a lot more energy against Crystal Palace, and today we didn't have it. And it's not only the team. I've got to look in the mirror as well. And I agree with that. Of course I do. He said that it was the game of their life. They fought for every yard, and we didn't. 99% is not enough at this level. You've got to give 100%. You have to kill the game, finish it off. We're leading 1-0, but you have to go for the second goal, and then you kill the game. We didn't finish the game off. We had to go for the second goal, and they stayed alive. We again had some good structures, but we need consistency across the whole game, and we can't give a goal away like that. Look, unfortunately, this is the definition of Manchester United, not just under Erik Ten Hag, but probably for the last 10 years. Every time you get a hint of something positive, they'll bring you back down to earth. There are still... Look, if I'm going to be completely harsh here, and I will name names because there's no point in not, it's the definition of insanity to expect consistency from players that have been consistently inconsistent, is it not? If you think about the last 5 years, have Manchester United been consistently successful? Have Manchester United, in your opinion, on your shoulders, in your heart, when you think of Man United, can you think of a period in the last 5 years where Man United have sustainably, consistently played good football and pleased you? Now, I think there's been times in there we've gone on runs. We went on a good run with Ten Hag. I think Solskjaer would still be in the last 5 years, so there was probably a good run there. But was there a time where you felt that we played good football consistently and felt like we were building something? And the honest answer for me is no. As I said, we've won things in that time with Ten Hag. We've won 2 trophies. We got into 3rd place with Ten Hag. Ollie, maybe 5 years ago, got a 2nd. I can't remember. But I've never really gone, oh my God, we're building something. There's been signs, but I've never seen it happen. So if the answer to that is no, then why is it that we think that we have still, that we can trust these players? Marcus Rashford's been here for the last 5 years. Bruno's been here for that period of time. Delos's been here for that period of time. Maguire's been here for that period of time. That's 4 straight away. There might be others. So we're still fighting this frustrating thing of, I look at the game last night, and yeah, you can blame individual players, and yes, you can blame the coaching. Of course you can. But also, I still think it's, ingrained in the football club to be inconsistently consistent. And I almost wake up in the morning and say, why have you done it again? Because after the Palace game, I wanted us to win that game. We drew, but I decided to go with the positives of, the first hour. We're building something. And then you watch last night and you go, yeah, I mean, it wasn't terrible. Admittedly, it wasn't terrible. It's not the end of the world. It's certainly not going to get a manager sacked or anything like that. But it's a concern. And you do wake up with that not again. And you do wake up with that, why do I do this? Why do I choose to be optimistic when the reality is, if there's one thing that stands true, is that these players and this club will let you down the minute you start to get optimistic. And that's how I feel today. I feel like not again. We didn't lose. We should have won. But I'll tell you, I'll give you a different take. I'll give you a very different take on this. If we'd won 1-0, I'd still be sat here doing the same. And you'd be going, stop being so negative. But I thought that this morning. I thought if we'd won that game 1-0, I'd still be saying the same. I'd still be saying that, it didn't work bringing Maguire in, that we didn't create enough chances, that the tempo wasn't good. Sometimes a result can mask a performance. And I think the draw was a fair reflection of what we deserved. But we could have won that game and I still would have said the same thing. So let's not pretend that the draw, in some ways, the draw gives you the reality bite, because the win would have masked it. It wasn't that good. The tempo wasn't that good. And you know what we were talking about yesterday about Scholes talking about the attackers not being good enough? I mean, that is, I don't think that's true, but that is not a problem last night. We didn't create enough chances. We didn't have enough of the ball. So, we can talk about finishing them off, which was the problem against Palace. Last night, we weren't creating the chances. So we're back to where we were last season again. And that worries me. Because I don't mind the problem being not putting the ball in the back of the net if you've got high chance creation and high possession. But at home last night against the Eredivisie side, I think we were about 50% possession and 5 shots. It's not so, that's what bothers me. You can analyse a game of football. We can all do that. But I know what we did against Palace. And I know what we did last night, and I don't understand. I don't understand how against Palace, you're knocking on 65, 70% possession, and you're creating loads of chances. And then at Old Trafford against FC 20, you're down near 50% possession, and you're creating 5 shots. It's just not good enough. Not good enough at all. Dull says, Eric's laptop told him to apologise. Well, look, listen to this. If you are Ten Hag out, if you are Ten Hag in, if you are Ten Hag, shake it all about or sit on the fence or whatever, do not mask or pretend that there is an easy get out here. Have you looked at our next few games? You've got Spurs on Saturday. You've got Porto away next week who lost their game, so they need a result. That will be difficult. We've then got Villa away. We then come back from the international break and we play Brentford at home, who have been quite good. We've then got Fenerbahce away. I think we've got West Ham away. And then we've got Chelsea at home. So in the league, our next 5 games, Spurs, Villa, Brentford, West Ham away, Chelsea. Mate, what did I tell you? What's all this talk about bloody Christmas? It'd be Halloween if it goes wrong. It'd be Halloween if it goes wrong. I'm telling you now. It's, CC's right. We're 4 games unbeaten, but it's not going to wash, mate. It's year 3 and there's pressure. And, as I said, I don't feel that last night's performance is about sackings. I think that's just going to come from the people who wanted him sacked in the summer or haven't changed their mind. That's fine. But the pressure's not going anywhere. Or what I want to see is the pressure disappear, but it's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. It's a very, somebody said to me last night on the match reaction, how would you solve it? If you were in charge, how would you solve it? And I think we all have to ask that question of ourselves, because although we have got no control over it, we must always have a solution. I said this last season, people wanted to sack Ten Hag and I was like, who are you going to get? And people would go, well, it's not my job. And I'm like, so you're hypothetically sacking a manager, but you're not hypothetically replacing him. I mean, that's just a weird mindset to me. If I don't like something, then I have a solution towards it. I don't just dislike something and then go, it's not my responsibility. So if I was in charge, what would I do? Well, the first thing I would be saying is, look, Eric, that was shit last night. I know we drew, but that was shit. Tell me why it went wrong. And if he sits down and goes, look, I haven't got the centre-backs I need. I rotated De Ligt out to give Maguire game time. I'd say, well, why? Why did you do that? Has De Ligt got an injury problem? Are we having to protect him? We've only just bought him. Have we bought somebody injured? I don't understand why, in a game that you clearly wanted to win, you didn't go with the centre-backs that make us play the way we want to play. Why are we giving Harry Maguire game time in 2024? He ain't good enough. We don't owe him a living, and we don't owe him game time so he gets picked for England. Why? You're going to lose your job doing stuff like that. So I'd be asking stuff like that. I'd be like, why are we not constructing a team to go and get wins and take the pressure off? Because I'm tired of it, Eric, and you must be tired of it. Do you like piling pressure on yourself? Do you like making bad decisions? Why didn't you take Bruno off? Why did you put him on the right wing? It was embarrassing. These are the questions I'd be asking if I was in charge. I wouldn't be at the point where I'm sacking him, but I'd be at the point where I was asking these questions, because those two things don't make sense to me. Why didn't De Ligt start? Because it makes us play a certain way. So why didn't he start? And why didn't you take Bruno off? That's where I'd start straight away. Because it's just, at this point, there are no more excuses. At this point, you're sacking yourself with silly decisions. So I would be asking those questions, yes. But also, unfortunately, we put ourselves over the next few games where there's going to be a lot of scrutiny again. And I'm bloody tired of it. I'm tired of it. But I'll go back to what I said at the start. I'm not going to not protect new signings. I think it's disgusting the way some people are behaving, and it's bullying, essentially. It's bullying a new player. It's bullying a young player. I don't get it. I don't understand that. I think it's toxic, and I don't think it's very nice. And look, I'm somebody who's criticised players. I'm not going to pretend that my farts don't smell, but I can't remember ever doing it in relation to a new signing. I didn't like Matic when we signed him. I didn't like Fellaini when we signed him. I didn't like Lukaku when I signed him. But I've always said, as soon as they put the shirt on, you've got to give him a chance. And I don't think 2 games is a chance. You might not like a signing, but for God's sake, what are you? Are you a Man United fan, or do you walk around your bedroom with your top off as a big fan of yourself, thinking you're some sort of fucking Sir Alex Ferguson regen? You're just a football fan. Support your football club. Get behind your team. Especially new players. I understand it, established players, but God, let's not burn someone before they've even had a chance. There was something else I wanted to talk about. There's quite a lot I wanted to talk about. Where do you think we're going next? Well, I think where we're going next is Spurs, and I think I did want to talk about this. Where we're going next is Spurs, and I'm worried, to be honest with you, because another thing I would say to Ten Hag, beyond why Maguire started and why he didn't sub Bruno, would be, what can you tell me what your best 11 is, Eric? I'm not going to put it in the bloody, I'm not going to ring up bloody TalkSport or, put it on Sky Sports News, but can you tell me what your best team is? Because I own this football club and I want to know. I've spent money this summer and I want to know what your best team is, and I want to know why I want to know why in games we need to win, you're taking out new signings, and I want to know in games we need to win why you won't sub off certain players. And I want to know why I've spent £60 million on a midfielder and you're playing a 32-year-old who's going for free in the summer because we're not going to give him another contract. I want to know what you're doing, because I know for a fact in the summer your midfield was not Eriksen, Mainu and Bruno, and now it looks like your midfield is Eriksen, Mainu and Bruno. So I want to know what the plan is, mate, because at the moment the results are very inconsistent and your team selection is very inconsistent. So I want a vision, Eric, because I'm going into this Spurs game and I'm absolutely shitting myself. And I want to win and I don't want to sack you, but I'm going into that game, I haven't got a bloody clue what team you're going to pick, and I haven't got a bloody clue what's going to happen. And that ain't no way to be successful. But this is where I think self-reflection is really important, because there's some comments I want to get into here, but I'm going to say this, and I was thinking about this last night just before I went to sleep. This is how much I think about United, and I'm sure you do as well. I thought, you know what? Look at Brentford. Look at Liverpool. Look at, obviously, Man City and Arsenal. What do those clubs have in common? What they have in common is pretty much they started the season with an idea of what their best 11 was and stability. And all of them have had good seasons. Brentford are having a very good season for the, what you would expect. Liverpool are having a good season. And I don't think this will get any attention, but I'm going to mention it anyway, because we spoke about it all summer and it never seems to, it's almost like when the transfer window closes, you can't talk about it. So we said throughout the summer, the most important thing was to be ready for the first game of the season. We were not ready for the first game of the season. De Ligt didn't start the first game of the season. Mazraoui did after 2 days training. So De Ligt and Mazraoui were not ready for the start of this season. Ugarte wasn't even here. Yoro was injured. Xerxes didn't start the first game of the season either. So for all the players that we've signed, not one of them was ready for the first game of the season. And factually, we are into late September, and you could argue that, well, one of them's definitely injured, and Ugarte's still bedding in. My bigger point is, it's not about transfers, it's about United's preparation again. I think our preparation was shite for the start of this season, yet again. I thought the US tour was fantastic for the US audience, and it's great that United go out there, but it was nothing more than a PR campaign. It did nothing for our preparation for this season, because our preparation was crap. Now, some of it was crap because a lot of players played in the Euros, but some of it was crap because the timings of our transfers were shit. Like Mazraoui and De Ligt, we were trying to buy them at the start of July. We didn't buy them until the start of August. Ugarte, we were trying to sign at the start of July. We didn't buy him until the end of August. So we are still behaving like a football club when you deep it. We're behaving like a football club that ain't ready. I'm looking around the Premier League. West Ham aren't ready, and they're performing really badly. West Ham won the transfer window, but they're performing really badly. There are teams in the Premier League where you can identify who's ready and who's not. And the ones that are ready, in the majority, are the ones that were ready for game one. And the ones that aren't doing that well are the teams that weren't ready for game one. And we're one of those clubs. That's not an excuse for Ten Hag. I'm just saying that we weren't ready for the start of the season again. And that is why, when I look at that United side, I don't know what he's going to pick on Sunday. Because I don't think we know what we're going to do. I don't think he knows what he's going to do. I don't think Ineos know what he's going to do. And I don't know what he's going to do because I don't know what his best 11 is. Because at the start of the season, Eriksen was nowhere near the team. It was Casemiro. Casemiro fucks up against Liverpool. Ugarte comes in, but it's Eriksen after the international break, and Casemiro's still not in the team, and neither's Ugarte. I don't know what his team is. I know his back five. Don't know his best midfield. Don't know his best attack. And that's another thing. You know, at the moment, you'd guess it's Rashford, Xerxes and Ahmad. But is it actually Garnacho, Højlund and Rashford when Rasmus is fit? I don't know. I just don't know. And again, unfortunately, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. And I don't know what United's plan is because I don't know what our best 11 is. And I don't think Ten Hag knows what his best 11 is. And if he does, he's certainly nowhere near it because I can't for the life of me believe that that team that started last night, all right, De Ligt and Maguire, is our best 11. I still think that midfield's going to get absolutely railroaded by a decent team at some point. But, you know, let's get into your comments. Abdul says, Ten Hag is not the guy, he's the guy before the guy, says Abdul. And Mark, well, I am going to talk about that. I want to talk about that, Kian, Abdul, actually. Despite how well we played against Palace and Twente at the beginning, we aren't scoring. We're still Moments FC, says Kian. I don't think, Kian, that you can compare Palace and Twente. I mean, you can, but I'm not comparing them. You know, I agree with Ten Hag. I think when I look at the game last night and I look at the game against Palace, the intensity, the pressure, the chance creation, the possession, it's night and day. I don't see any similarities between the performances, and that's the scary thing. I think that's what he's saying. Like, there is no similarity between Palace and the Twente game. They're like two different teams playing. And that's more worrying than saying the problem's chance creation. It's not. Palace was fine. Palace was a good performance. Last night was not. They are like two different teams, and that is terrifying. My main concern is dressing room power, says Abhijit. If it's still an issue, will a new manager fear dropping players to avoid losing control of the team? Says Abhijit. Well, look, Ineos have a control. I mean, we're speculating here. I said last night, why would you put Bruno on the right wing? Is it fear? There is fear somewhere. Is it fear of taking Bruno off because he'll behave like a child and then he'll go in the dressing room and cause problems? Is it fear of that, which means Ten Hag is weak? Is it fear that if you take him off, you might deprive yourself of him putting it in the top corner when he had that chance? It was fear that kept Bruno on last night. Now, if it's fear because of dressing room power, then that's on Ineos. That's not on Ten Hag. Ineos have to clear the club of those toxic elements. So they've just handed Bruno a massive new contract. So they must be more than happy to have Bruno in the club. How much influence he's got, I don't know. But there was definitely fear that kept him on the pitch last night. Now, in fairness, Beth was in the mix zone last night and said that Bruno, after the game, was the one player that actually acknowledged them and spoke to them. Obviously, he wouldn't do an interview, but he was actually acknowledging, the press and being professional. There's no doubting that Bruno Fernandes is a nice guy. There's no doubting that he wants to be successful. I mean, bloody hell, in his own words, he only signed a contract because the club showed a vision to winning things. He wants to win things. The problem is he good enough at the moment? It's an ability problem. Now, help is it? And if Ineos detect that there are players in that dressing room running the dressing room, then Ineos are nothing more than the Glazers. So they have to deal with that. I hope it isn't that. Bruno and Rashford are leftovers from the old regime, says Marlowe. Last pieces of the puzzle that need to be replaced before we can reach the next level. Shaunik says, in both the games at Palace and yesterday, when the opposition packed the midfield with 5 players or more, we were suffocated and were not able to play, says Shaunik. Erik Ten Hag is clearly out of his depth. What's so hard to see, says United 1. Yeah, but you know what, United 1? I would advise you to either try and be a little bit more constructive. Otherwise, I'm just going to class you as Red Army. I mean, because it's just, you don't really add anything. Like, at least when I say I don't want to sack the manager, I can acknowledge there are big issues. Yours is just constant out of his depth. Well, he's not out of his depth, is he? He just won the bloody FA Cup against Man City 3 months ago. I mean, I get that you don't want him to be the manager, but you lose with just silly comments like that because he's not out of his depth. He's won 2 trophies in the last 2 years. No one's done that since Sir Alex. He beat Man City in the FA Cup final with a very good performance. We played well against Crystal Palace. That last night wasn't very good, but he's not out of his depth. He's factual he's not out of his depth. He might not be good enough, but he can't be out of his depth because no other manager apart from Sir Alex has won 2 trophies back-to-back at Manchester United in the last, however many years. This is the first time we've heard Ten Hag take responsibility, says JR. Are you expecting a high line versus Villa and Spurs, says Robert McCormack? I think mate, I don't know. Robert, I think it's a very good question. I don't know. I mean, I've got to do the preview for Spurs. I think we're doing it today or tomorrow. I just genuinely don't know. I think any optimism I had from the Palace game has been, completely and utterly burst because I've seen that these players are inconsistent again. And I can't move past that. It's just the biggest disappointment. Trust is what it comes down to. Inconsistency leads to lack of trust. I just don't trust these players. And I don't trust Ten Hag to be able to replicate what we did in the first hour against Palace, against the Spurs side that will come with a very clear identity. And he might just go, let's play deep and counter. I don't know. We might play counter on Spurs because they play a high line. I would not be surprised if we played a little bit deeper and tried to hit them with pace with the angled ball, which is not progression, is it? But that's what we might do. I don't know, Robert. Good question. Patrick Lynch says, biggest difference from Maguire and De Ligt last night was ability to play the ball. Maguire can only play long diagonal passes. You can't play possession with speculative passing. Maguire's not a very good passer of the ball under pressure. His body balance isn't good enough. His hips need about a gallon of WD-40 on it, and he still wouldn't have any good movement there. He's a decent passer of the ball when he's got the time to ping a long ball or play a ground pass. He's a decent player on the ball when he's got 20 yards to run into. But when he's under pressure, he can't pass. He hasn't got the dexterity in his hips to, move and pass and agility. And at the highest level, you need to move the ball under pressure. And, he isn't very good at that. Lindelof's not very good at that either. Really hoping for things to click and for this team to succeed. Slow starts weren't uncommon under Sir Alex, says James. Ugarte was by no means the worst player last night. Just don't get the hate. Has to be trolls, says Colin. Well, no, apparently it's real Man United fans, mate. I just don't... It's a bigger disappointment for me than the result last night. I just don't get how you can call yourself a Manchester United fan and be slagging off Ugarte at this earlier... I just don't get it. Even if you didn't want us to sign him, why would you do it? What good will come out of slagging off your own new signing? What will it do? It's not going anywhere. He's on a big contract. What enjoyment do you get out of supporting Man United if that's what you're doing? I just don't get it. I mean, everybody, each to their own. Each to their own, of course. Each to their own. But each to their own, I find it unbelievable. I just can't get my head around it. It's just not what this football club's about. in my opinion. I want my Avajit says I want Maguire out, but I respect how he kept his head down after losing the captaincy, unlike how Bruno might mourn if he were dropped. You're right, but we can't see. Why can't Erik Ten Hag see it? Says Keel. Saniel says what baffles me is Ten Hag inners confidently say he's the man to take us forward, but have no idea if we can finish top 4, let alone win the Europa League. Says Saniel. Well, I'm Ten Hag in, and I'll answer that question. I've got no idea if we can get top 4 or win the Europa League, but if he doesn't, he'll be gone. So get your head around that, Sanil. You know, I want him to stay and I want us to do well, but if he doesn't do those things, he'll be gone, and I accept that. I'm not gonna. You won't get me sitting here saying it's gonna happen. I support him. I support this vision, but as I've said before, I'd sit down opposite now and tell him he's sacking himself. You know, I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated that, you know, I'm behind this project and he's doing things that he shouldn't be doing. But, you know, he'll sack himself. If he doesn't get top 4 or win the Europa League, he's gone. And he might be gone a lot before that when you look at the next few games. Duncan says, obviously it's early and willing to give him a chance, but seen plenty of Ugarte previously and he's often uncomfortable on the ball. Do hope I'm wrong about him, says Duncan. Can I just remind somebody as well, just about Ugarte? I mean, I don't want to keep talking about this, but Duncan brought the chat in. Can we just remind ourselves of something here? Because there might be, I've just got a theory here. Some of the people going in on Ugarte might be doing it to go in on Ten Hag. Can you just remember who bought Ugarte? Ineos. Dan Ashworth. Yes, Ten Hag's part of the decision. Yes, they all decide together. But the Ugarte deal, the Yoro deal, the De Ligt deal, the Mazraoui deal, these deals were all done with Barada and Ashworth and Wilcox. So when we're slagging off these signings, remember you're slagging off Ashworth, you're slagging off Ineos. So where's the headset of these people that are slagging off Ugarte? Because you're slagging off the whole project, not just your manager. It's well documented how involved and why they went for Ugarte. They went for Ugarte because he's the best midfielder in Europe at winning the ball back that was obtainable. That's why they went for him. They didn't go for him to conduct the midfield with passing. They went for him for his ability to win the ball back. That is well documented in any journalist, anybody in the know, even the club are happy to have it out there. So don't start slagging Ugarte off because you don't like Ten Hag, because it wasn't Ten Hag who went, get me that midfielder. In fact, some people think he wasn't that sure about Ugarte. So there's a bit of hypocrisy there if you're slagging off Ugarte because you don't like Ten Hag, because I'll tell you for free, all the evidence is out there that Ugarte was picked by the new board collectively. Some people have even said that Ten Hag wasn't too sure on him, which I don't think is true. Not Ugarte, Erik Ten Hag, Big Z. I'm not going to read that out because I don't watch or have any interest in other United YouTubers, and I'm certainly not going to make the same mistake as I did with the other guy, where you give them a little airtime and they start using you. So I'm not interested in that. I'm talking about what I saw on Twitter last night. Not Ugarte's fault. Erik Ten Hag tactics are unsustainable, says Keel. Thank you very much for that. I want to talk about Rude. It's only fair to give Ten Hag until December after he won the FA Cup, but must get top 4. Liam, I don't think he gets till December. I really don't. I mean, I want him to do well, but I'm going to tell you something now. Spurs, Porto, Villa. That next international break is bedlam. Absolute bedlam. It's chaos. If they don't get 2 wins from 3. Like, it's going to go off like a bottle of pop. And the thing I will open my eyes to is, I saw this with Ten Hag, I saw this with Ollie, and I saw it with Jose. That second international break is basically the starter before the main course. If it goes bad in the next 3 games, I don't think he'll get sacked in October, but I think the contract will be getting written up. And I think by November he'll be gone. So I wouldn't say Christmas, mate. I think that, you know, rightly or wrongly, that pressure is there. Ten Hag going the long way around, subbing Rashford off, bringing Ahmad off for Garnacho and bringing Højlund on for Rashford. Just take Rashford off. What was the benefit of taking off our best winger, says Kenneth. I think his subs were weird last night. The triple substitution was just... It wasn't as frustrating as not taking Bruno off, but you can't give Mount, Rasmus and Mainu 15 minutes. You can't give them 15 minutes against a team that's basically swamping their back four. You've got to give them longer than that. People call themselves fans and then disrupt the chances of achieving the one vision we all have. I just don't get it, says Daniel. Hess, welcome to the Members Club. Caddy says, Eric Ten Hag should have bought a proven striker, but Ten Hag wants to buy unproven strikers. Apart from Rashford, they're all young, so there is no model for them to take inspiration from on the pitch, says KD. I mean, I think that would be a good point if we were missing lots of chances, but last night was not about that. Crystal Palace was about that, but last night wasn't about that. So, again, look, maybe there's a conversation about the strikers, but I genuinely don't think there is, because I think last night the chance creation was shit. The amount of times we got into good positions and then produced a crap cross or, misplaced pass, for me, it wasn't about the attackers last night. The service was pretty piss poor. Bruno needs taken out. I agree with that. But every game Xerxes has played has had a chance ball across the box and has been half a yard off it every time. Our strikers aren't good enough, both average, says Sean. Well, Sean's in agreement with Katie there. So look, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think we've seen enough of Rasmus this season, and I saw enough last season to see that he's a good striker. You make a good point about Xerxes. I know what cross you're talking about, and he should be getting on the end of that, and there has been a few of those already. So, but look, again, I just want to say, we've just had this conversation about Ugarte. Can we please just be patient with Xerxes? I mean, Liverpool fans are patient with Darwin Núñez. He's been there 2 years. So I don't want to say learn something from our biggest rival, but Liverpool fans have got the back of Darwin Núñez until he comes good or they sell him. They support him. They've got his back, and that's been going on for 2 years. We've not even had Xerxes for 2 months. We've not even had Ugarte for a month. And our great fan base, that apparently we're the best fans in the world, and we have got the majority, some of the best fans in the world. But at the moment, some people are letting it down. Like, we can't start throwing Xerxes and Ugarte under a bus. They've not been here 2 months. And then I look down the road at Liverpool and they're still backing Darwin Núñez. They're still giving him support because he's one of their own. Whoever the manager is, whoever the owner is, as fans, I believe there is a responsibility to welcome these people into our family and try and give them some support in the formative months. After a year, look at Anthony. A lot of people have given up on Anthony now. I've tried to be patient with Anthony. To be honest with you, 2 years in, he's on the bench. It ain't looking good, Brev. But not 2 months. Come on. And I'm not saying that Sean is wrong, and I'm not saying that Katie is wrong, but we've got what we've got. And if Xerxes isn't good enough, and he only ends up being a bench player, well, let's be supportive of that, because he didn't demand Man United buy him. That's down to bad recruitment, which again goes back to the board. It's not a Ten Hag signing again. It's Ashworth. It's everybody else. It's only fair to give Ten Hag until December. Liam, I just want to say this very quickly. I don't know whether we're doing the preview live at 2 o'clock today or whether there's a press conference. We will be live at 2 o'clock, and we can obviously talk about more players then. What I will say is, though, it'd be remiss to say that there's pressure and then just to ignore the alternatives. Even though I wouldn't be looking to sack the manager, I will say this. If Ineos decide to make a move on Ten Hag because the results just become unsustainable, which actually is a fair point, that we're Manchester United, and at some point, if results go really bad, you have to press the button whether you want to or not. It will take a very brave person to not do that. I would acknowledge that. And what I'm talking about here is, Spurs and Villa losses makes it very difficult when you've lost 4 out of your first, 7 games or something like that it would be. So you've got to have a contingency plan is what I'm saying. And in that contingency plan, I'm just going to say this right here. You would have to go to Ruud. It's the first time I've really thought about it, and I thought about it last night. What if? I'm not Ten Hag out. I'm Ten Hag in. But in life, you've got to have a what if. What if your car breaks down on the way to Cornwall on a family holiday? You're just going to sit in the lay-by and cry? Try and carry all your luggage? Never going to work. You need to get in contact with road recovery. You might have a road recovery insurance policy. You might have a friend who can come and help. You've got to have a contingency plan. If Ten Hag needs to be sacked, you can't just bury your head in the sand. Man United did that a few years ago when they should have sacked Solskjaer on the international break, and they all went and hid in a cave for a week. if they do decide to sack Ten Hag, it has to be Ruud. Now, would you go for Ruud if they sack Ten Hag? I just want to ask this question because I don't know what the Ten Hag outers want next. Do you want Ruud, or do you not know what you want? Because Simo makes a good point. What if Ruud van Nistelrooy is worse? I don't know whether Ruud van Nistelrooy is going to be good. I genuinely don't. Why I would go with Ruud is because I cannot stomach another rebuild. You bring in Thomas Tuchel, or you bring in Nagelsmann, or whoever else the next big thing is going to be, you're back on the cycle again, just like you were with Mourinho after Van Gaal, just like you were with Ollie after Mourinho, just like you were with Ten Hag after Ollie. You're back on that cycle of a new manager comes in. I'm going to be the guy that makes Man United great again. I'm going to have a new manager bounce, and then the same old problems are going to occur. And what I'm also going to do is, I don't want that player, that player, that player. I want that player, that player, that player. It's going to cost you a few £100 million to get them. We're going to get stuck with these because we can't sell them. I mean, imagine this scenario. You sack Ten Hag. Tuchel comes in. I don't like Ugarte. I don't like De Ligt, which has been proven. And I don't like Mazraoui. You've got 3 players who are on big contracts and big wages that are not part of the future plans, and they've only been here a year. So I just don't want another rebuild. So if they decide not to go with Ten Hag, then they've got to give Ruud a chance. And I don't know whether Ruud would be any good at it. But at least if they did that, he's the guy that's worked with these players and party to what's going on, and there'd be more continuity. But some people might say, but I don't want continuity. I don't like what this project is. So I don't know what people want after Ten Hag is the question, rhetorical, to you. What is it you want after Ten Hag, if it happens? Because to me, I would want Ruud because I would want continuity, but it's just as risky as Solskjaer. And it could go the same way. There's no guarantee that Ruud van Nistelrooy can mix it up with Arne Slot or Arteta or Pep, which is what we need. Which is why I think a lot of people would be demanding a big manager. But if you bring a big manager in, 56 Circular says, would you bring Ange in? Well, the problem is, I don't mind Ange. I think he's a good coach. But is he good enough for a big club? And also, is he going to like all the players that we've got? Probably not. So I just don't want a new rebuild. And every other manager is going to be another rebuild. And I don't want that. I think it's the worst thing we could do. But that's the problem with this going wrong. We can't afford it. We can't afford it to go wrong. It's a messy situation again, and that's why I just feel like not again. And I'm very worried about Spurs at the weekend because they're capable of coming and handing our arse on a plate. And if they do, I don't think we'll come back from that. I think if Spurs come to Old Trafford on Sunday and batter us, I just think that'll be the beginning of the end. I just think there's such a in the fan base at the moment, you know, I'm Ten Hag in. I want this project to work, but I'm not apathetic. I'm tired. And I just feel like, you know, if they don't start getting results, then we're going to be back where we've always been. But where are these results going to come from? What is his best 11? I just don't know. I just feel very fed up with the whole thing at the moment, to be honest with you. But I don't agree with the Ugarte stuff. I don't. And I don't agree with the Xerxes stuff as well. Thanks everyone for watching. We're back at 2 o'clock. Make sure you smash a like and subscribe. Our build-up play is too slow for our front line, says Maslin. Rather take McKenna than Ruud. Ruud's only just joined, so he'd probably want to rebuild too. Anyone would, to be honest, says Duncan. Yeah, keep an eye out as well. I think if you want to, you know, I can't be that optimistic this morning, but there is a career mode that's about to return today, TUSFC, for the legends who know. Certainly that is a bit of optimism. We're hoping that that's going to drop on my channel around midday today, but I'll let you know about that one. Take care, everybody. I don't want Rooney as manager. No, God, what's happened to our fan base? Seriously. I don't know. I'm just going to go for a long walk, I think. Speak to you later. Take care.